I'm Benjamin Riddle, and I was a combat engineer in the United States Marine Corps from 2004 to 2009.
These questions might seem like erratic and all over the place. That's, answer them however you want and with as much detail as you want. What are the things that you stress most about in your life right now?
As it relates to my experience or just in general?
In general. Or both if they're one and the same.
Sometimes. I have a hard time with my expectations of other people. And I think that is directly related to the quality and integrity that I had with the guys I served with. And that's missing to me here. And an example is, like, everyone out there gives it to you straight. There's no fluff, there's no bullshit. And like, here it's different. Here it's always fluff, it's always bullshit. And there's all these lies and different agendas that you have to sift through to get to the truth. But there, the truth was simple. We were on the same side, and we got the job done together. That was the truth. There's nothing to be gained from a separate agenda or lying or hiding. But out here, that's almost always the case. So I have a hard time understanding and often empathizing with that side of people here. And I think I deal with that constantly on a day-to-day basis. And it's frustrating, and it makes you feel isolated because those guys aren't to my left and my right anymore. You know, some of them are out there. I stay in touch with them, but it's not like we're in the field together. It's not like they're right there for me to lean on. So it feels alone because you don't know who to trust, and you don't know if they're even telling you the truth. And it's more times than not, it's usually the first comment or remark or answer is not the truth. And that's a difficult thing to deal with.
What has been your lowest moment since returning to civilian life?
I mean, recently, obviously, which we could talk about, but that was in reality a culmination of years of not fully processing everything that happened. And I could say there were moments where I failed in relationships because I couldn't communicate what I was feeling, or I would isolate myself because there was no way for anyone else to understand, at least that I was around. You know, and those kinds of things hurt your relationships with people, even though that's not your intention. But recently, my lowest point was putting myself through enough stress and dealing with the people and the agendas and the lies and the betrayals and feeling so isolated and alone, I blacked out and rage and destroyed a room, the one we're sitting in. Just 7 hours gone, no memory of it, couldn't tell you what happened. Woke up on the floor, had no idea. I mean, I thought I'd been robbed at first. And that was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. But it wasn't like there was any one thing that happened that night that did it. It was a culmination of the years and years and years of, avoiding it and being frustrated and letting the anger take a hold of you and not understanding what you were feeling and feeling alone and feeling trapped, and it kind of just like came to a head, and it's difficult to compartmentalize the 20 years of stress that's been, and then adding on to it the additional load of everything I do in my life now. I mean, I just broke. And that's the easiest way to put it. I just broke and like snapped. And the most difficult thing for me about that is I don't remember doing it. So I can't give you a clear emotion of what I felt in that moment. So it was just all so much. And I think, from what I've been able to understand and make sense of is everyone has a breaking point, and I found mine. And it happened, and that's something that has opened my eyes to the severity of needing to address these things, and something I think that veterans deal with on a daily basis, especially, from firsthand experience, I know what that darkness feels like and what that isolation feels like, and the anger and the rage, and it was just a terrifying experience. And then the next day, kind of looking at your life in pieces and not knowing what's next, and then like all the 20 years you spent of building up your armor and your anger and your defenses and your defiance, it all just was shattered, which means it wasn't real. And then all you're left with is your own vulnerability, and what you do with it at that point is a terrifying thing. I mean, that's going to be subjective based on the person.
What's been the most important relationship you've made or had or developed in your civilian life since returning?
I don't like using the idea that one is more important than the other, because like it's all a part of it, right? There are times when I was able to reconnect with my father, who was a Vietnam vet, and all of a sudden we knew something about each other that I didn't know before, right? Like that relationship developed in that way, or seeing my, mother, like the way she would move differently around me when I came home. Like she would make sure to not just like stir me awake or things like that. But that wasn't a bad thing. It just showed her caring and awareness of the situation, and our ability to talk and connect on a lot of different levels about my experience, so that I wasn't pushing her away. I had to be more vulnerable with her. There's been, I think, though, to kind of pinpoint it, when I came out of the Marine Corps and moved up to college, that was a very unsettling experience, because I moved up there when I still had fucking sand in my hair, and and like I didn't know what was next. All I know was that like I had literally been in a combat zone weeks before that, and I didn't have shit. I had like 2 sea bags and a pickup truck, and like college, like what the fuck is college after any of this? And like I'm so used to this world that was violent and aggressive and clear in terms of our mission, and like very hard-edged, and kind of like iron sharpens iron, and it was terrifying. And then I'm thrown in this world where I'm with kids, and how in the fuck how am I going to connect with them, and how are they going to connect with me? And this place is a place of learning and peace and mentorship, and it's supposed to reflect an atmosphere of safety, but I hadn't felt safe long, long time. I didn't even know what safety felt like. You know, that was a concept that was so far gone from me. And I met a group of guys, and we started training together, you know, and what was really comforting was no one seemed to judge me. No one looked down on me or any other way that was malicious or malfeasant. We just created a bond, and we trained hard together, and you guys are some of my best friends to this day for those years we put together. And I think for me that was comforting because it put me back in an environment that was challenging and tough and hard around the edges and had this common mission. There's even an aspect of violence to it because we were training to fight, and that gave me not only an avenue to start to place that energy, but also it gave me the camaraderie that I was missing, and it gave me a group of individuals that I felt like understood me to the best of their knowledge. And I remember thinking, I can't remember when exactly, but I've kind of always thought this is like, though that group of guys may have saved my life, because I don't know where I'd be without them. You know, like you feel like a shark out of water walking in there, and like, you know, I'm this violent thing with a violent history, and there's rage in you, and you know, you're just trying to process even what the last fuck happened for 4 years. And I'm walking into a classroom or a cafeteria with kids that barely know how to use a washing machine, you know, and that's not a look down on them, that's just the fact of what's happening. And you know, you feel like this violent, dark kind of monster in the room, and I know that it's a necessary thing. I know that what we do is a necessary thing. There is violent and hurtful things out there knocking on our doors constantly, and it was my job to play whatever part I needed to out there. But those kids don't, and they're innocent for the most part, you know, and that's a very difficult situation to navigate when you don't feel like there's a part of you that could connect in any way. And the group of guys I dealt with, I could. And so I think that those relationships, and to include yourself, are probably the most influential in terms of not only that pivotal point of time for me, but who each of you are still today. Like, that didn't end, that carried on, you know. And you guys have always been there for me, no matter what monster I became or what version of myself was being presented. You guys have always been there, and that's the type of loyalty you have in the environments like the Marine Corps, and that's something that's missing in this world. You know, friends, people you can trust, you know. So I think those relationships are, you know, quote unquote, the most